Life Sciences Corp. is a Latin American-based pharmaceutical company that develops and commercializes medical cannabis products. Khiron has core operations in Colombia and is fully licensed in the country for the cultivation, production, domestic distribution, and international export of both THC and CBD medical cannabis. In May 2018, Khiron listed on the TSX Venture, becoming one of the first Colombian-based medical cannabis companies to trade on any exchange globally. Khiron Life Sciences Corp. is listed on the TSX Venture under the ticker symbol KHRN.
I'm joined now by Alvaro Torres, CEO of Khiron Life Sciences, trading on the TSX Venture under the symbol KHRN. Alvaro, welcome back.
Nice to be here, Jim. Thank you
Alvaro,
so much.
Khiron has now become officially the first, not the first, but one of the top multi-continent operators.
Yes.
And you've got just this incredible, exciting development going on in cosmetics, in medicine, in Mexico, in Colombia. Let's start off with a quick chat about that last press release you put out, wherein you're now going to be distributed to 900 pharmacies throughout Colombia. That strikes me as quite a serious development for the company.
I think it's extremely serious because we've always talked about Colombia as being our beachhead, and then how do we expand to Latin America? And now that we want to be multi-continental, how do we follow that path? But it's always important to execute, right? So it's not just about how much you can grow,
Sure.
but also how you're executing your home country.
Sure.
I think the distribution deal that we just signed is shows a lot of interest from the market and from the traditional retailers that medical cannabis is coming. How do we start getting into the hands of patients? So we always talk about execution, cultivation, extraction, but for me, also the most important part of it is how you get in the patient's hands. So we've always been talking about in the last year how while we are moving in other countries, let's make sure that in Colombia we can keep that dominant position that we have.
Right.
And with that, then we're gonna just be copying that to the rest of the countries.
Sure.
And it also sends a message that the company is ready to start production, delivery, sales.
Yeah.
That's the part of the entire thing. that we're
Right.
doing.
So for the 900 stores in Colombia, that's exposure to 5 million people, as was disclosed in the press
Yes,
release.
yes.
Is it a case where they're all able to just buy cannabinoids over the counter, or is it by prescription at this point?
It's going to be both, Jim. So
Okay.
one of the reasons why we did this is because to buy THC products, which is a controlled substance, we need to be dispensing it through the appropriate allowed dispensary pharmacies. So this company has in the 900 chains, stores, they have a lot of them that are already have the ability to sell controlled substances.
Okay,
So
cool.
what it does for us is to have the patient not just have to go to the clinic that where he or she is getting the prescription, but being able to go to his or her nearest pharmacy to pick it up over the counter and also under the prescription. So the idea here is how do we mass market medical cannabis,
Right.
and make sure that we can have a better service with the patients so that they can go and pick it up or getting distributed to their house as quickly as possible.
Right.
So it's going to be both, but that retail presence allows us just to start thinking about how do we access more those 5 million patients.
Perfect. You also put out your financials, which, in keeping with the whole industry, there's nothing spectacular yet in terms of revenue as you build your market. When will we expect to see serious revenue happen for Khiron?
Well, I think 2018 is a pre-revenue year.
Okay.
But even with that, we went public in May 24th. It's been only 11 months since we started going public.
Right.
We bought a clinic, we started selling cosmetic products, and the results are just starting to show you that we're starting to get that retail presence built. I think for me particularly, only a year into all operations, to be able to start showing revenues has to show our investors that we are building the right platforms.
Right.
And platforms take some time to build because you're talking about shelf space, you're talking about medical education, having those patients to really understand it. 2019, you will see us having revenues in every single one of the countries that we are executing on. And then all of that is built for 2020, which in line to what we've spoken to analysts and shareholders, is really the year where all these jurisdictions are starting to really roll out. But the fact that we already have sales in our country with executing on what we told the market that we're going to execute, that shows that we have a clear path of understanding revenues are important, execution is important. And as more countries start to get aligned behind this, then we're going to start seeing those in 2020. But 2018 for sure, we're talking about Mexico, Chile, Brazil, Uruguay, we'll start to see revenues coming in all those jurisdictions, Italy now.
Right.
And I think that's exciting. You're building a platform.
Sure. So you've got all these different products coming in, over-the-counter medicines, prescription medicines, and then the cosmetics side is a completely different thing. You've got Dixie Brands partnership, so you've got brands everywhere.
Yes.
How important is the brand strategy to Khiron?
I think that's the most important part of our strategy. The rest is supply chain logistics, right? So cultivation, production, quality is important. But the sustainable part of this business is always going to be on the brands. If you don't have a connection with the consumer, whether it's a patient, it's a user, it's a consumer for his pet or for supplements, if you don't have that connection, then you're talking about very short term. But I think cannabis is here to stay in the long term. That's why we spend so much time building Cuida, because Cuida is now a brand that women appreciate, and that's going to allow us to have more SKUs and more relationship with the retailers and with the consumers. If you're just worried about the production part of it, which I guess if you work from Latin America, that's for me the commodity type of play. Then you're going to be competing against anybody that can produce and cultivate CBD.
Right.
But when you talk about brands, then you have the ability to rule and make decisions on your supply chain that are going to be better for the price. So for us, it's always been like that. I told you before when we first met, I don't want to build a company that sells coffee at 90 cents a pound.
Right.
I want to be the company that sells the cup of coffee at $5 a cup.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to do. And the rest of it is just the supply chain, which is going to be efficient and logical. Some of that will be done by ourselves in our facility. Some of that will be outsourced. I think it just creates an economy for everybody in Latin America or where we're growing that allows to have better options.
Right.
But the branding side of it, which is also why we did Italy. Italy is not just cultivation in Padua, it's because they have retail presence and they're selling product. And that channel is very important to us because then we can start pushing the rest of our products in the pipeline. Now that we did the Dixie as well. Dixie comes with a very strong brand. It comes with formulations. That gains 10 months of research that we don't have to do ourselves. The production part of it is the easiest part.
Sure.
The most difficult part is to get the consumer to really believe in the brand and be loyal to it.
Sure.
And so that's where we spend most of our capital.
Yeah, so with your exposure to Italy now, that's more or less your gateway into all of Europe. And with the sort of incremental easing of rules governing CBD products, does this mean that Cuida will be available throughout Europe as the regulations sort of keep up?
Well, yes, Jimmy. We were just invited to Cosmeprof, which is the biggest trade show for cosmetics, and that was in Bologna in Italy. And the amount of interest that we are being receiving on how do you get a product like Cuida with that quality into the shelves is very interesting. Now, of course, we have to go through all the regulatory issues because, as you know, the rules are easing up. But right now, we have the ability to start making conversations that nobody else is able to have on cosmetics. And of course, now what that means for us is just the ability to export, supply chain, what do you manufacture. But that brand, what we've been able to do in Colombia, is now very easily translatable in Europe. And Italy, for us, is the beachhead of how do we get into Europe. That just basically very much like the way the Allies did in World War II. Start by Italy and then you start with the rest of Europe.
That's right. Different companies have different strengths and different weaknesses. Khiron seems to be developing a very lateral approach across these three different main sectors. So there's the medical, the cosmetics, and the consumer packaged goods on the branded side, a la Dixie Brands. So I mean, I'm just wondering how soon until I'm drinking a soda that's made with Khiron's cannabis product in any of New York or London or Bogota?
That's a very good question, Jim. That's all we strive for.
Right.
And we try to do these partnerships so that we can get faster to market. To develop our own type of drinks for ourselves would have been very difficult. That's why we partnered with Dixie. Now we're just looking at the regulatory side to it, right?
Okay.
If you're talking about Latin America, that can come sooner than later than the United States. Of course, we know the regulations. But we had this question about, remember a year ago we were talking about how soon can I get a cosmetic product done by Khiron?
Right.
And it only took us 6 months after that question.
Right.
So I think it's going to be sooner than everybody expects.
Sure.
Because we're very good at regulatory understanding.
Yes.
Europe is the next market that's coming online as well, federally legal and with CBD. And the United States is easing the rules. And the way I look at the world is that there's no global brand that's dominating the market in cannabis. Why can't it be Khiron's?
Yeah,
Because in the end, the biggest beer company in the world is Brazilian.
Right.
And so why can't cannabis be from Latin America either?
Well, Colombian gold.
Well, and coffee.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Alvaro, that's a great update. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate your time.
Ba-da!